Joining us today is United Australia Party Senator Ralph Babet. Thanks for coming on to Talk Straight.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm glad to be here. For those that don't know, I actually just got back from COP29, which is a conference of the parties where I was there with all of the globalists at the United Nations. And the reason I was there was to obviously discuss nuclear power for our nation, for our country, for Australia, because like you just said, this pipe dream of solar panels and wind turbines to power a whole nation is absolutely ridiculous. Not only is it going to cost trillions of dollars likely, but it's, because it's a government-led initiative, it's obviously going to go over budget. We all know that already. And we just can't run our country of solar panels and wind turbines, which, like you mentioned, are not renewable. The only thing renewable about these stupid things is the cost, because you have to reinstall these things every 15 to 20 years or something like this. You constantly have to pull down solar panels and wind turbines and reinstall them. China's laughing at us because they make all of this stuff. They've got us by the kahunas. And unfortunately, we've got weak, inept leaders like Prime Minister Albanese, but also like Peter Dutton as well, who has not come out strongly enough against this stuff, in my opinion. But you know what? Let's have a chat. Let's talk about it.
Well, you certainly were behind enemy lines at COP29. You even ran into old mate Lino, Matt Keane. So, Senator Babet, can you tell us about what you learned at the conference?
Yeah, well, look, I'll tell you the most important takeaway that I have from COP29, from the Conference of the Parties, from the United Nations, from all of the other people that I have spoken to, is that if we do not adopt nuclear energy, if we don't do it, then our country, we are going to become a third world country. I've said this before, we are going to be going back to the horse and carriage, And when people think about energy, don't just think about turning on your lights or heating or cooling your home. You've got to think about industry as well. You've got to think about putting food on the table. You've got to think about companies being able to make things in this country. Because if they're not able to do it cheaply, and you need cheap power for them to be able to operate in the first place, if they can't operate here, what are they going to do? They're going to pack their bags and they're going to go overseas. They're going to go to our competitors. And the big beneficiaries of this madness that we're going through right now, this madness towards solar panels and wind turbines and completely ignoring nuclear, is China. They are benefiting from what we're doing. We're shutting down our industrial capacity. We're shutting down our country, and they just coming in and scooping everything up. We need to move away from this ideological fantasy of net zero through wind turbines and solar panels. Other nations across the world aren't doing this. And the ones that are doing it are suffering, like Germany, for example. We need to drop this garbage and become realistic. Ideally, what I would like to see as a United Australia Party senator, I would like us, and I'm sorry I'm ranting, but I'm very passionate, I would like to see us drop this whole concept of net zero in the first place, relegate it to the trash heap of history, drill, baby drill, more coal, more gas. But if we're not going to do that, then we need to go and look at nuclear power. I do not want to be riding a horse or sitting in the back of a horse and cart. This is just crazy.
So what do the net zero zealots say to you when they hear your opinion?
Well, I'll give you a brief example as to what it was like at COP29. I was speaking to a group of people, and then someone mentioned to me the intersectionality between white supremacy, racism, and global warming. And I'm just thinking, mate, are you serious? I mean, come on. That just about sums up, to me anyway, what COP29 was all about. It was a whole bunch of globalists talking from on high down to us little people down below. These people are disconnected from reality. In my opinion, a lot of them are potentially not all there, a bit loopy. But, we can talk about the science of climate change all day, every day. That, in my opinion, is absolutely not settled. But on a practical stance, we have to look at nuclear. We have no choice now.
So when we look at the Liberals' proposal and we look at communities like Lithgow and Loy Yang in the Latrobe Valley in your state of Victoria, which are historically very economically depressed, but they already have a skilled workforce in place because the coal-fired power stations were already there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that these communities would welcome having that infrastructure built there, even it being entitled to free energy as they are in Ontario, in Canada, near the nuclear power plants. So, you know, what are you hearing from ordinary people on the ground who actually welcome these policies?
Look, people are suffering. The average person out there is suffering. People that don't live in the Canberra bubble. People that don't work in the big bureaucracy of government. Actually, I'd like to mention something here real quick. There was a report that came out recently that said around 1 in 5 people now in this country are employed by the government. The government's just too big, it's too bloated. If you ignore all of those people with their cushy government jobs, if you look at regular people, they are struggling. Something has to be done. Now, I'm not saying that I have all the answers. Of course not. But what I am saying is that we need to have a proper national conversation about where we go from here as a country. The decisions that are going to be made in the next few years are going to determine what happens to Australia. Do we become a third world nation? Because that's where we're headed. Or do we look towards the future if we can't get rid of all the climate agenda stuff anyway, at least not right now? Do we look towards the future and say, hey, look, everyone else is on this bandwagon. We're the only ones that aren't looking at this seriously. It has to be looked at. It has to be talked about. The debate has to be opened up. And you know what the good thing about parties like mine is? You know what the good thing about the United Australia Party is the United Australia Party under Clive Palmer, were one of the first people to start talking about nuclear energy years and years and years ago. I'm going off on a tangent here, but just bear with me for a second. We are people that do this. We open what's called the Overton window. The Overton window is basically what is acceptable to be spoken about today. What is acceptable? Okay, now my job as a UAP senator, and I would like to think all minor party parliamentarians, is to open the window of acceptability. If we hadn't done that many, many, many moons ago, we would not be having the conversation about nuclear energy today. So on that note, I'd like to thank Clive Palmer for having the kahunas, the balls, the foresight years and years ago to open this debate up in the first place. I'm going to say this one last time. We don't adopt nuclear power. We become a third world country. It is that simple. And I will not sit here in this big house on the hill and shut my mouth while these people, these nasty leftists, willingly, in my opinion, willingly see to the destruction of the country that I love so much. I'm sick of it. I've had a gutful, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to use my voice. They won't shut me up.
Senator Babet, talking about things we can and cannot say, I have to ask, you've been censured. Was it a mistake to make those posts?
No, it wasn't a mistake because you know what? Context matters. It's all about context. So some of you may know that I shared a tweet on my social media a few days ago. I was speaking to someone on X. His name's Andrew Tate. I said, essentially, I'm going to self-censor just for 1 second so your broadcast doesn't get taken down. But I said, good job, N-word, 100% I agree. Something like that is what I said to him. Now, I know Andrew. I speak to Andrew on a personal level. He's not offended. I'm not offended. I'm actually a brown person myself. He's a brown guy himself. We were talking amongst each other, and the lefty media took it completely out of context and made a story where a story didn't exist. Now, let me tell you why they did it. They didn't do it because they were offended. These people aren't offended. These people are the rudest, worst people in the history of the world. These lefty people, you go onto their X feeds or their social medias and they're abusing everyone, talking absolute garbage. They selectively went after me because they are afraid of me. I am a threat to the lefty establishment. My views, my ideas, they don't like it. And they're looking for every chance they get to make a mountain out of a molehill. That's what they're trying to do. I'm sick of these lefties. I have no time for them, and I am absolutely sick to death of mainstream media. Nobody cares what mainstream media thinks anymore. No one gives a darn. Donald Trump proved that. I'll give you an example. right? Something like 90% of all the mainstream media coverage that Donald John Trump got from the mainstream media was negative, and something like 90% of the coverage that was received from the mainstream media by Kamala Harris was positive. And guess who won the election? It was Donald John Trump, as we all know, because the mainstream media has lost their grip on the narrative. People at home, turn that garbage off. Stop looking at it. Ignore the mainstream media and treat them with the contempt that they deserve. These people, they are activists masquerading as reporters. They are lefty journalists, Marxist journalists. Their views don't matter. They are irrelevant. Put them in the dustbin of history. Don't listen to them. X is the media now. You are the media now. If you have a smartphone in your pocket, you're the media. Ignore these dirtbags.
Well, I think you've made the point, Senator Babette, that the legacy media is now very much dying. We've seen CNN, their audience has halved. MSNBC is down by a quarter. And with the presidential campaign, we were just shown how much they lie and how badly out of touch they are with the ordinary people. So thank you so much for joining us on Talk Straight, Senator Babette.
Thank you so much. And if, I am the straightest talker that you'll ever meet. You may not like me, but at least I'm going to give it to you straight. See you later.